Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtattarshada Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Shinaravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtattarshada Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jainitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura, text number 4. Please repeat. Kim anvat prichan Maitreyam. Kim anva prichan Maitreyam. Virajastirtha sevaya. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upagamya kushavarta. Upagamya kushavarta. Asinam tattvavittamam. Asinam tattvavittamam. Kim anva prichan Maitreyam. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upagamya kushavarta. Asinam tattvavittamam. Kim anva prichan Maitreyam. Virajastirtha sevaya. Upagamya kushavarta. Asinam tattvavittamam. Kim, what? Anvaprichat, inquired, Maitreyam, from the sage, Maitreya, Virajaha, Vidura, who was without material contamination, Tirtha Sevaya, by visiting sacred places, Upagamya, having met, Kushavarate, and Kushavarta, Hridwar, or Haridwar, Asinam, who was abiding, Tattvavit, the foremost knower of the science of spiritual life. Okay, we'll do a Mangala Charan and then we'll go through the purport bit by bit. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapte Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So translation, Vidura was purified of all passion by wandering in sacred places, and at last he reached Hardwar, where he met the great sage who knew the science of spiritual life, and he inquired from him, Shaunaka Rishi. Shaunaka Rishi therefore asked, what more did Vidura inquire from Maitreya? Purport. Here the words Virajas Tirtha Sevaya refer to Vidura, who was completely cleansed of all material contamination by traveling to places of pilgrimage. In India there are hundreds of sacred places of pilgrimage, of which Prayag, Hardwar, Vrindavan and Rameshwaram are considered principal. After leaving his home, which was full of politics and diplomacy, Vidura wanted to purify himself by traveling to all sacred places. So we see 2 points here. The first thing is that, Vidura, his family background or whatever the family situation was in Hastinapur, it was not favorable for his spiritual life. So a devotee chooses or makes choices in Krishna consciousness based on the parameter of his or her Krishna consciousness. Many times devotees have the question, how much should they engage in material life? How much should they engage in, let's say, making money, or let's say, building a new house, or whatever it may be? How much should they engage in that? And the parameter for that is always, is it going to disturb or impede your Krishna consciousness? And different people have different degrees of how much they can withstand the material energy. And Rupa Goswami says that the ideal state is that one should use material things in Krishna's service. So the pure devotee, he or she is not affected by material things, rather they see everything connected with Krishna, and because they see everything connected with Krishna, they're able to use material things in Krishna's service. But we may not all be pure devotees, and therefore we all have a certain limit to which we can deal with such circumstances. And Vidura, even though he's a pure devotee, even though he can engage everything in Krishna's service, he is setting an example for us by showing us that if things get a bit too hard to handle, I think I was mentioning, my brother, when he was a very young boy, he had a jumper, just like when he was a baby. And it said in the jumper, when the going gets tough, I go to grandma's. That means when my life gets tough, I go to grandma's, because generally the grandparents, they're a bit more lenient compared to the parents. So the grandmother, she'll bake cookies and cakes and give it to the child like that. So I always remember that. So similarly, when the going gets tough for us in Krishna consciousness, or let's say in mature life, then the devotee takes more shelter. He or she changes their situation. This is called lifestyle engineering. My Guru Maharaj, he often in his classes, he talks about this. We have to have the determination to change. Generally, people are reluctant to change. But in Krishna consciousness, we have to be dynamic. Because Maya is dynamic. Maya is dynamic because she's a person, she's engaging in her service to, get us in her grip. Therefore, we also must be dynamic in our Krishna consciousness and how we are evading Maya and how we are getting close to Krishna. So Vidura is showing that even though he's a pure devotee, he's showing that, okay, in his house in Hastinapur, there's diplomacy, there's politics, people are offending him. And yes, he's not offended, but still he's showing that when such a situation arises, we have to have the determination to change our situation. And therefore he is going to places of pilgrimage. He hangs his bow on the door of the palace. And what does that show? He's a Kshatriya, right? Okay, he's born from a Shudrani, but nevertheless, he's coming from the house or a family lineage of Kshatriyas. And he carries a bow. He's also a fighter, he's also a warrior. But when he goes on pilgrimage, when he's choosing Krishna, he hangs that on the door. Naham vipro nacha narapati, napi vaisho na shudro, naham varni nacha grihapati, vano vanasto yatirva, kintu prodyan nikila paramananda purnamritabder, gopi bhartur padakamalyor dasa dasanudasa. Very beautiful verse by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who says that a pure devotee does not identify themselves with any one of the varnas, with any one of the ashramas. Our identity is simply that we are the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, who is the maintainer of the gopis. So he hangs that bow on the door. I'm no longer a Kshatriya. I'm no longer part of a royal household. I no longer identify myself with any of these material designations. I am now simply going on places of pilgrimage. And what does he want to do? Yes, Srila Prabhupada here is saying that after leaving his home, which was full of politics and diplomacy, Vidura wanted to purify himself by traveling to all sacred places. So Srila Prabhupada is saying in India and many other places around the world, there are hundreds of places of pilgrimage which we can go to purify ourselves. But then, it is also said, Tirtha Sevaya. Tirtha Sevaya. What does Tirtha Sevaya mean? Here it's translated as by visiting sacred places. Yes, that is one point. Srila Prabhupada has mentioned here in the purport that by visiting sacred places, we purify ourselves. But then elsewhere, what is it mentioned? Tirti kurvanti tirthani. It is also mentioned that a pure devotee, when he or she goes to a place of pilgrimage, what do? They take away all the sins which other people have deposited in that place of pilgrimage. So in that sense, they're serving the tirtha. They're serving the dham in that way as well. You understand? So there's a difference. Ordinary people, they may visit a tirtha to get purified. But in that process, they leave their sins behind there. But a pure devotee, actually a pure devotee like Vidura, when they go to a place of pilgrimage, what do? They purify even the place of pilgrimage by taking away from the sacred rivers, from the holy rivers like Ganga and Yamuna. They take away the sinful deposits which all these people have put there. So in this way, they are serving the dham. And it's not that only the dham is serving them, but they are also serving the dham as well. So when I was reading this Sanskrit, Tirtha Sevaya, that's something that came to mind. And also, it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Sri Krishna is instructing the residents of Vrindavan in Kurukshetra that Boma Ijjadi, he says one should not be too attached to one's bodily designations, to one's family members, and one who visits places of pilgrimage simply to take a bath is considered no better than Gokara, a cow or an ass, Srila Prabhupada says, translates it like that. So why? Should we just go to places of pilgrimage just for that? Just for a holiday? No, we have to go with a certain purpose. Like in 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned that if you perform sacrifices without knowledge, you will not get as purified quickly as if as when you perform a sacrifice with knowledge. Does it make sense? Because then you understand why you're doing something. And then you also clearly understand what is the result that will come if I do something in that way. Just imagine you go to school or university not knowing the purpose why you're going. Right? Because your parents tell you to go, so you go to school. Then it becomes like a ritual, right? Okay, my parents have told me to go, so I'm going to school. That's it. Day after day, I'm just going to school because someone else has told me. But when you come to realize that by going to school, day after day after day, what will happen as a result? In the future, you will get some qualification, and with that qualification, you'll get a job, you'll get money, you'll be able to establish yourself in this mature world. With that knowledge, if you then go to school, then you'll get more out of it. You'll put more concentration into your work. You'll work harder for your exams. You'll want to make more friends and connections in your university. So if we perform a sacrifice, if we practice Krishna consciousness with knowledge, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, then we'll get a more fruitful outcome. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada says that going to places of pilgrimage does not entail just taking a bath in a holy river. That's a little bit ritualistic. We have to go to places of pilgrimage for which reason? What reason does Srila Prabhupada say? To hear from sadhus. To hear from, and who is Vidura going to hear from? Maitreya Muni. And Maitreya Muni heard from who? Directly Krishna and Uddhava. So he is showing us the perfection of visiting the places of pilgrimage. Yesterday I was hearing Sri Guru Charan Prabhu in a class. Radhashyam Prabhu had invited Sri Guru Charan Prabhu and some other devotees. I forgot. Some other senior devotees, some other senior brahmacharis in Pune. And Sri Guru Charan Prabhu in his class, he was talking about Dhruva Maharaj. How is it that Dhruva Maharaj left his home? Right? He initially left his home because he wanted a kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. He wanted a kingdom greater than his own grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu. But then Narada came when he went to the forest and he tested him. Are you sure this is what you want? And he was determined. Okay, by the association of Narada Muni, he got that seed of bhakti and then he continued. And then Lord Vishnu came eventually. Prishnigarbha came and gave him his darshan. But Srila Prabhupada mentions that Dhruva Maharaj did two things. 2 Ds, Sri Guru Charan Prabhu was saying. He deliberated, and the second one is he went out with determination. So yes, when our authority, when some senior in Krishna consciousness, they tell us to do something, we should deliberate. Deliberate means what? To think about what I have to do, to ponder. That is deliberation. Okay, I've been given this instruction, so let me think about it. How am I going to do it? Why should I do it? What will be the result of doing it? How should I go about doing it? This is deliberation. And once one has deliberated, then what? Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bhahushaka hi anantashra buddhayo avyavisayanam. Then one should go out with determination. But sometimes what happens to us? We deliberate too much, we think too much, and then we discourage, oh, this is too hard. It happens to me so many times. This is the result of mental speculation. We have to put faith in Krishna's mercy. Krishna's hand will always be there. But we don't have that faith, Sometimes a very difficult service will be given to you and you'll think, oh, how am I going to do it? What am I going to say? How am I going to approach people? What words will come out of my mouth when I stop someone on the street? And we think, and then we get discouraged. I can't do it. So, but that is not what Dhruva Maharaj did. He deliberated, and then he went out with determination. And he continued his determination to see Lord Vishnu, because he knew that if I get the darshan of Lord Vishnu, I will get the fulfillment of my desire. But of course, Kachan Vichinman Apidivyaratnam Swamin Kritartusmi varam nayache. When he saw Lord Vishnu, what happened? He did not want any material things anymore. And actually he got the fulfillment of his desire. Because his desire was to be satisfied. His desire actually in principle, in essence, was to be happy. And he got that when he came in association with Lord Vishnu. And of course he became a great king as well. So I remember first time when we went to Vrindavan actually, we went to Kusum Sarovar. And I was there with Ganesham Prabhu, one other devotee was there. 2 other devotees were there. And we went to Kusum Sarovar, very beautiful place along the Parikram Marg, just after Radhakund it comes. And then just on the side of Kusum Sarovar, there is a Uddhava temple. And it's actually a little bit hidden, but someone pointed out, we managed to go, you have to go through a bit of forest and trees, through some bushes and get to that temple. And then there was one sadhu there, and he was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, but he was entrusted to serve the deities of Uddhava and Vajranab there as well. So we sat there. It was actually our last day in Vrindavan. We spent 6 weeks in Vrindavan, but we didn't get to go on Govardhan Parikram because we went there to learn Mridanga from some of the members in the 24-hour Kirtan there. So all day, that 6-week period, we were just learning Mridanga. And we didn't get to go to different places. So that was our last day in Vrindavan. And the very next day we were supposed to leave Vrindavan. We were supposed to come back to Sydney. So we went on Govardhan Parikram, and we went to this temple, we sat down, and then this sadhu, this disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he started to talk to us about how he came about doing this service, about what he does every day. He told us the story of Kusum Sarovar, the history of that, what happened during Krishna Leela, and how the queens of Dwarka, they got to hear Srimad Bhagavatam there. So he was telling us like that. And then even we were so fortunate that he actually went and he actually cooked. He made an offering actually, with some milk and bananas and some sugar and some gur. He mashed all these things together and he mixed it, offered it to the deities, and he gave it to us as Mahaprasad as well. And he had written some books as well, so he gave us copies of his books as well. And then Ganesham Prabhu mentioned something very significant there at that point. He said that I don't want to continue on with this Govardhan Parikram. I would rather sit here and rather spend my time associating with this devotee. And that's when it hit me. Because I was thinking, no, it's our last day here. We've been in Vrindavan for 6 weeks. We haven't done Govardhan Parikram. I want to go. I want to see places. And indeed, that is good as well. But the standard of Srimad Bhagavatam is that we will if we go to the Dham with the mood of sightseeing, we will not get as much purification, we will not get as much advancement in Krishna consciousness as if we submissively and humbly hear from the Vaishnavas who are residing in the places of pilgrimage. So one of the best ways that we can serve someone, not someone, but a Vaishnav, is by hearing from them. If we give our ears, if we lend our ears to a Vaishnav and their words that they're speaking, the Krishna Katha that they're speaking, that is one of the best services that we can render to a Vaishnava. As Srila Prabhupada always says, Vani and Vapu. So Vapu means you can serve the body. But more important than serving the body is serving the words, the instructions of the Vaishnava. So the Vani is more important. Okay, so Uddhava is doing that. He's demonstrating that if things get tough in material life, if we're not able to dovetail our material happenings, daily happenings in Krishna's service, then we should be prepared, we should deliberate, and with determination, we should change our situation so that we can become more Krishna conscious. Vidura wanted to purify himself by traveling to all the sacred places which were so situated that anyone who goes there automatically becomes purified. This is especially true in Vrindavan. Any person may go there, and even if he is sinful, he will at once contact an atmosphere of spiritual life and will automatically chant the names of Krishna and Radha. So this particular Vaishnava was also telling us that if we go to like Vrindavan, and if we happen to die in Vrindavan, then we'll take birth in Vrindavan again. So if we qualify ourselves in Krishna consciousness to an extent that we take birth in the holy place of pilgrimage. And he was specifically talking about Vrindavan. Then we will keep taking birth in Vrindavan until we go back home, back to Godhead. Right? So all these, like, I was reading recently in a purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada was saying, he was talking about all the monkeys and all the animals that we see in the holy places. They are there because they're actually devotees in their past lives, but they happen to engage in some sinful activities. That's why they're still taking birth in places like Vrindavan, Mayapur, but they're in a bodily form, which does not allow them to commit further sinful activities. Because if a monkey engages in sinful activities, can a monkey be blamed for that? No, it's just acting according to its nature. But they are doing these things in the holy dham. They have not left the holy dham. They have not left Vrindavan. So Krishna protects us in this way. That once we reach Krishna's lotus feet, once we take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna never allows us to leave again. Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. So someone was asking, so I think Sanjay Prabhu was asking, can we fall back down from the spiritual world once we go back there again? I was telling him no. So Krishna makes that promise. Once burnt, twice shy. Once we go back to the spiritual world, Krishna assures us that we will never fall back down to the material world again. So Sankarshan Maharaj, when he describes this just as a bad dream. Just as a thought, rather. So we're just with Krishna in the spiritual world, and in Krishna, everyone is serving Krishna. Everyone is serving Radha Gopinath, and then we have that slight thought, how would it be if I was there, everyone was serving me, and if I was the center of attention? Right? And then we have a daydream sometimes. Many times we have daydreams. So this material existence, Maharaj often explains, is like that daydream. It's like a flashback. It's like just like a short micro nap where we are experiencing practically what it is like to enjoy separately from Krishna. So when we go back to spiritual world, our whole existence, millions and trillions of births in the material world, is just like a bad dream, and it's just like 1 second. Because the spiritual world is nimeshardakhyavana vrajati yatrapi samaya. There's no time in the spiritual world. So you may spend so many births in this material world, but once you go back to the spiritual world, your whole existence in this material world seems just like less than a fraction of a moment. It's not much. So it's insignificant. Krishna makes it insignificant. But sometimes when we are dreaming, we may actually be sleeping for like 5 minutes, but it may seem that we've been sleeping for so long. Right? It may seem like we're sleeping for so long. So this material existence is like that actually. So in the spiritual world, it's just a fraction of a moment, but right now we're feeling as if it's so long. And we're feeling that we're actually bound by the grip of material nature. We're feeling as if we're bound by time, by birth and death. But actually none of these things are affecting the soul. Na hanyate hanyamani sharire. Right, so we'll continue. That we have actually seen and experienced. It is recommended in the Shastras that after retiring from active life and accepting the Vanaprastha, retired order, one should travel everywhere to places of pilgrimage in order to purify himself. And if one is a pure devotee, one can purify even the places of pilgrimage by taking away the sinful deposits from there. Vidura completely discharged this duty, and at last he reached Kushavarta or Haridwar, where the sage Maitreya was sitting. So every time I come across this scenario where Vidura is talking with Maitreya, I always remember something which I read before I joined the ashram. I remember because I was I worked for like a year, and I was posted in Southeast Asia in Malaysia, and then I remember things were getting so difficult there. I was working overtime so much. associating with so many karmis, and it was just getting overwhelming. The job was very difficult. And I would go back to my hotel at nighttime, and I would just sit down, and I would just get like 5 minutes to read Bhagavad Gita or Krishna book or Srimad Bhagavatam. And at that time, I was up to 3rd canto. And I just remember opening the book. I was so sleepy. And then I read that Vidura is glorified because he has the quality of adrita. Adrita means he is eager to hear. We must be eager to hear from Vaishnavas. And what stops that eagerness? It is envy. If we are envious or if we are jealous of someone, then we cannot hear from them. And that is why we should have good relationships with everybody. And how does that come? That comes by following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions. Just like this morning in Namamrita we read that. Does anyone remember what we read in Namamrita this morning? What verse was stated there? Trinadapi sunichena taroriva saishnana amanina manina kirtanya sadahari. It was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur who mentioned that we can only attract the masses of people in this world if we develop these qualities. He mentioned, and he was referring to his own spiritual master, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He was mentioning the very qualities that attracted me to take shelter of him was these 4 qualities. And if I cultivate these qualities, then if we all cultivate these qualities, then we will be successful in spreading Krishna consciousness to the masses worldwide. It is only these qualities mentioned in this verse by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka which will attract people to come and surrender to Krishna. But how do they surrender to Krishna? People surrender to Krishna in this day and age by surrendering to Krishna's devotees. And Krishna has mentioned that in the Puranas. He has mentioned when he was speaking, I don't remember the context, but he was speaking to someone and Krishna was mentioning that after Krishna goes back, then after some time, the river Ganges will also leave as well. And the Yamuna will leave as well. And we're seeing that, gradually we're seeing that. Right? But then he says, it is in some Purana, and Krishna is saying, but after these holy rivers they leave, after Ganga leaves this material world, this earth planet, after she leaves and goes back to spiritual world, then only my devotees will remain. Krishna assures us that he will leave back his devotees. And by the mere sight of Krishna's devotees, by the mere glance that Krishna's devotees place upon others, this will induce people to surrender to Krishna. So therefore, surrendering to Krishna in the present day and age means surrendering to Krishna's devotees. Means surrendering to representatives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because it is through the devotees that we can understand how to surrender to Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Chana avatar. It's not easy to understand him. But if we follow the instructions of our acharyas, of the 6 Goswamis, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then we can understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can understand Nityananda Prabhu, and then we can get the mercy of Radha and Krishna. Another significant point is that we must go to sacred places not only to take bath there, but to search out great sages like Maitreya. So there we go. And take instruction from them. If one does not do so, his traveling to places of pilgrimage is simply a waste of time. Gokhara. Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava sect, has, for the present, forbidden us to go to such places of pilgrimage. Because in this age, the times having so changed, a sincere person may have a different impression on seeing the behavior of the present residents of pilgrimage sites. So we even have the risk nowadays to even go to the holy place of pilgrimage and commit offenses there. Right? Especially you can see of Vrindavan. If we go to Vrindavan nowadays and if we don't philosophically understand the value of Vrindavan by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, if we don't understand the benefit of going to a holy place of pilgrimage, then it is very natural that we will commit offenses. And that will be detrimental to our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So, Narottam Das Thakur has said, better in the present day and age not to visit the holy places of pilgrimage. That, of course, that doesn't mean we should not visit at all, but we should go with the proper understanding of the benefits. We should go with the blessings of other Vaishnavas as well. And with their blessings, if we visit the holy place, then we'll actually get something out of it. But if, again, as I was saying, if we go with that sightseeing mentality, everyone is going to Holy Dham, everyone is going here and there in Kartik and this, let me just go along as well. Yes, you will get benefit, but there's always that risk, as the Narottam Das Thakur was mentioning. He has recommended that instead of taking the trouble to travel to such places, one should concentrate his mind on Govinda, and that will help him. So my Guru Maharaj was saying that one powerful way that we can focus our mind on Krishna is, you may say, to go to the holy Dham. You may say to chant Hare Krishna, Mahamantra. Yes, this is all true. But he was saying that we can very powerfully focus our mind on Govinda, we can very powerfully focus our mind on Radha Gopinath if we develop the preaching attitude, if we take up the responsibility to spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, then our mind will be very powerfully focused on Krishna, if we take up the responsibility. So this whole logistics which is involved in printing Srila Prabhupada's books, in stocking them in warehouses, in distributing them worldwide, right? Collecting donations and using these donations to get more books, to build facilities, Krishna conscious institutions. All this is the direct meditation on Krishna. So this is a very powerful way. If we take up the responsibility of doing this, then not only will we advance very fast, very swiftly in Krishna consciousness, but our mind will be very powerfully focused on Krishna. Why? Because the intelligence is focused on Krishna. Yo buddhe paratas tusaha. So the soul is higher than intelligence, but higher than the mind is the intelligence, right? So if we use our intelligence to scheme how we can spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, then naturally our mind will also be engaged, because we are engaging our intelligence. If our intelligence is it's like this: if we engage our mind in Krishna, if we engage our mind, if we purify our mind, then naturally our senses will be purified, right? Because the mind is the controller. It's the reins of the horses. So if the reins is under control, if the reins is strong, then the horses will be under control. But if our intelligence is strong, then not only will our senses be purified, but our mind will also be purified as well. Of course, to concentrate one's mind on Govinda in any place is a path meant for those who are the most spiritually advanced. It is not for ordinary persons. Now we should take heed, we should take actually solace that when Srila Prabhupada is saying that just to focus our mind on Govinda is something which is meant for very advanced persons. But Srila Prabhupada has given us that opportunity to be very advanced persons. Because in this Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us a process by which we can advance to the highest stage of Krishna consciousness, in the highest form of relationship with Krishna, in the quickest way possible, in the easiest way possible, which is to engage in this Sankirtan movement. So by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we can consider ourselves to be on the path of perfection because we have the most advanced process. And because we are following the most advanced process, those who are following the most advanced process are naturally the most advanced as well. We may not consider ourselves to be the most advanced, but certainly we are more advanced than other types of yogis, Gyan yogis, Karma yogis, like that. And even bhakti yogis who may not be actively preaching, compared to them, those who have taken up that responsibility, yes, we are to see them as more advanced. So Srila Prabhupada has given us the facility to become the most advanced by preaching Krishna consciousness. Ordinary persons may still derive benefit from traveling to holy places like Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, and Haridwar. And we have examples in our movement, like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was asked, Maharaj, why aren't you going to the holy Dham to leave your body? When Maharaj had the cancer, he was leaving his body. But he said he preferred to stay in New Vrindavan and leave his body. Was it New Vrindavan or Gita Nagari? Gita Nagari, to leave his body there. Because he considered Srila Prabhupada's temples, farms, to be an extension of the holy place. So he showed that we don't need to we don't need to actually physically go there. We can be perfectly happy, we can perfectly advance in Krishna consciousness within Srila Prabhupada's homes that he has built throughout the world. It is recommended in this verse that one find a person who knows the science of God, or a tattvavit. Tattvavit means one who knows the absolute truth. There are many pseudo-transcendentalists even at places of pilgrimage. Such men are always present, and one has to be intelligent enough to find the actual person to be consulted. Then one's attempt to progress by traveling to different holy places will be successful. Sure. Prabhupada is saying, if we want to be successful in traveling to a place of pilgrimage, then we need to have enough intelligence to be able to find which is actually a sadhu. We have to go to a place of pilgrimage to associate with sadhus. Right? That is, we have established that point. Krishna has spoken about that in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. That when we go to a place of pilgrimage, we have to try to associate with sadhus. But then Srila Prabhupada is saying, but even when we try to associate with sadhus, many of them will be pseudo, not bona fide. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that we should equip ourselves with enough know-how, enough intelligence, how to discern which is a real sadhu and which is not real sadhu. If we can do that, when we go to a place of pilgrimage, then we can consider our trip to a dham to be successful. So that puts the onus on us to educate ourselves. Right? So if we read Srila Prabhupada's books, then we are educating ourselves. Prabhupada is clearly telling us what to do, what not to do, how to choose Maya, how to discern between Maya, how to choose Krishna. And my Guru Maharaj mentions that's like a muscle, flexing a muscle. You have to keep training. You have to have that choice between Krishna and Maya is like training your muscles. You have to keep making that choice of choosing Krishna all the time. And then your muscle will become stronger and stronger. If you start weight training and you continue weight training, it's very easy. You get used to the weight. Just like if you're doing push-ups, for example. Right? When you start with like 10 push-ups, it's very difficult. Right? But then after 1 week, it becomes very easy. Right? Then you can move on to 15, 20, and then that is difficult, and then you do that for another week, and then that becomes easy. But then if you're doing 20 push-ups and it's very easy, and then you stop for 2-3 weeks, then what happens? You lose that power. Right? Then again, doing 10 push-ups again becomes difficult. So it's like that. So we want to keep choosing Krishna each time, and then it becomes easier and easier and easier to choose Krishna. It becomes a habit. So at no time do we want to choose Maya. Otherwise, again, it will be difficult to choose Krishna. Right? One has to be freed from all contamination. At the same time, he has to find a person who knows the science of Krishna. Krishna helps a sincere person, as stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Guru Krishna Prasade. By the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, one attains the path of salvation, devotional service. If one sincerely searches for spiritual salvation, then Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, gives him the intelligence to find a suitable spiritual master. By the grace of a spiritual master like Maitreya, one gets the proper instruction and advances in his spiritual life. So when I was reading this about how Vidura has left home, how he's traveling, how he has now surrendered he will now surrender to Maitreya Muni and hear from him. So these sadhus, they have given up their selfishness, they have given up their sense gratificatory propensity, which may have been there previously, but now they have dedicated their lives to spreading Krishna consciousness and to sharing happiness with other people that way. So I came across a story some time back whereby a teacher conducted an experiment with his students. And he gave his students, it was like a class of 30 students, 30, 40 students, and he gave all these students a balloon. And he told the students to write your name on the balloon. So they wrote their name. And then he told his students, okay, let's go into the hallway. He took them out, and he told all his students, blow into the balloon, make it very big. So they all blew their balloons, 30, 40 balloons. And then what happened? He told them, okay, release your balloon. So all of them at the same time released the balloons, and the balloons were flying everywhere in the hallway. And then he told them, go and find your balloon. Go and find your balloon. And then they were looking everywhere, picking up one, it's not mine, threw it away, going around, picking up this, another one, it doesn't have my name on it, they threw that away. And like that, it was taking them so long, one or two persons found their balloon. And then the teacher said, stop, let's not do it this way. The method we will use is that you pick up any balloon that you see on the ground, and you go and give it to the person whose name is written on it. And that's what they did. They each picked up the nearest balloon on the floor, they read the name, and they went and gave that balloon to the person whose name was on the balloon. And in that way, within 2 minutes, everyone had their balloon back. So this story is telling us that if we consider these balloons to be happiness, right? Then what does it mean? We will get happiness for ourselves if we give happiness to other people. These students were giving happiness to other people. And when they were focused on doing that, happiness automatically came to them. Someone came to them and gave them their balloon back. So if we are simply focused on pleasing Krishna, on pleasing the Vaishnavas, then we don't need to look separately for our own happiness. It will come. Whereas the very endeavor that we put in to find material happiness for ourselves, that is the very beginning of material distress as well. So that is what these great sadhus like Vidura and Maitreya have dedicated their lives for. To share this happiness of Krishna.